I wasn't sure if I would ever get married or have kids.
This was not merely a fleeting confession, but a reflection of a lifetime of love marked by heartbreak from Malcolm-Jamal Warner. The man once known to the world as Theo Huxtable from The Cosby Show had come to understand early on that his love always came hand in hand with loss. And he was right. On the final day before fate drew its curtain, Malcolm sat silently under the amber light of a resting room in Costa Rica and wrote down 5 names. Not friends, not enemies. These were lovers who had left wounds so deep that he confessed, "I will never forgive." Each name carried a chapter of his life. A pure first love turned tragic. A long-standing bond that quietly dissolved a dazzling Hollywood romance shattered into bitterness. A tormenting ambiguity and a belated haven cruelly stolen by fate. Before leaving this world, Malcolm said nothing to anyone but the page. Yet one question continues to echo: who were those 5 names? And why did he carry his resentment all the way to the end of his life? Not just love. In his 20s, Malcolm-Jamal Warner stepped onto the screen as a symbol of a new generation. In The Cosby Show, the young Theo Huxtable became a familiar face in every American household, bringing laughter, innocence, and even hope to a society in transition. But when the studio lights went out, Malcolm was no longer that naive teenager. He was a man constantly struggling to balance a towering fame with a private life far too fragile. People remember him as an actor, musician, and director, a multi-talented artist. But few knew that behind the spotlight, Malcolm craved love, even more than he craved accolades. In one interview, he once admitted, "I'm not afraid to fail in my career, but I'm afraid of being alone in a dark room." That sentence, gentle yet haunting, was the red thread running through the tumultuous love life he led. Malcolm had public romances that stirred the media, from Hollywood beauties to young singers, from co-stars on set to women outside the industry. But beneath the posed photos and red carpet smiles were heavy silences. He loved fiercely, but forgave with difficulty. And every time his heart broke, he chose silence, leaving behind only cryptic interview lines, aching blues songs, or diary entries that never saw the light of day. By the end of his life, that silence was replaced by the most honest words, a list of 5 women Malcolm called wounds that never healed. They were not just loves, but shadows that defined his loneliness. Before we dive into each of these stories, one thing must be remembered. Malcolm was not just an artist. He was a man with a fragile heart who once believed, once gave, and once lost. And it was that very loss that shaped the Malcolm-Jamal Warner the world never truly came to know. Michelle Thomas, the first pure love and an irreplaceable loss. They often say that first love is the purest form of affection, sweet and fragile in equal measure. For Malcolm-Jamal Warner, that love was named Michelle Thomas, his on-screen girlfriend, and also his first real-life partner, the one who left a wound in him that would never fully close. In 1988, The Cosby Show was at its peak, a cultural phenomenon in America, with over 30 million weekly viewers. That season, Michelle Thomas, just 20 years old at the time, was cast as Justine Phillips, Theo Huxtable's girlfriend, opposite Malcolm. The 18-year-old young man and the radiant young woman began merely as an on-screen couple. But between takes, scripted glances turned into something real. From pretend lovers in front of the camera, they became true lovers behind the scenes. The couple kept their relationship private, not wanting fans or the press to pry too deeply. But the way their eyes lit up when holding hands at events, or the unconscious embraces after long days on set, soon gave them away. Audiences were thrilled. Justine and Theo were no longer just a television couple. They had become a symbol of youthful love in real life. Beautiful, famous, and talented Malcolm and Michelle were the golden couple of late 80s entertainment. Through 6 years together, that first love became Malcolm's anchor. The Cosby Show ruled the airwaves, bringing him early fame, but also enormous pressure. When the lights dimmed, it was Michelle who stood by him, listening, sharing, and comforting. When Malcolm struggled to find direction after the show ended in 1992, Michelle was still there to support him. And when she joined Family Matters in 1993, they continued cheering each other on. Even after their breakup in 1997, Michelle made a guest appearance in his sitcom Malcolm and Eddie, proof of a deep connection that couldn't be severed. But love is no fairy tale. In 1994, as both entered the trials of their 20s, they quietly broke up. No fights, no scandals, just growing differences as each focused on their separate careers. Malcolm was 24, Michelle 26. They chose parallel paths. Still, they remained close, treasuring one another like soulmates. The true tragedy struck in 1997, when Michelle, just 29 years old, was diagnosed with a rare form of stomach cancer. The disease quickly drained her strength. In December 1998, she was being treated at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. Upon hearing the news, Malcolm flew from Los Angeles without hesitation, despite their years apart. He stayed by her bedside, holding her hand in her final days. In the quiet hospital room, Michelle whispered two strange words: elephant juice. Malcolm was momentarily puzzled, then remembered it was their private love code, sounding like, "I love you," when mouthed silently. Her final words of love, soft but profound. Malcolm smiled and returned the phrase, closing the circle of their love. Just a few days later, on December 23, 1998, Michelle took her last breath at the age of 30. Malcolm was right there, holding her hand to the very end. That loss was the greatest shock of Malcolm's life. At 28, he had to say goodbye to his first love, the first woman he ever truly loved. For years afterward, Malcolm kept her memory alive. In 2015, he posted an old photo of Michelle on Instagram with the caption, "An angel walking the earth, lighting up every place she went. Rest well, my love. You are missed." The words brought thousands of fans to tears. Even after marrying and becoming a father, Malcolm always kept a space in his heart for Michelle. And when he passed away in 2025, Michelle's official memorial page shared a farewell. "Unbelievable. Rest in peace. My heart goes out to your family." 27 years later, it seemed they were reunited, this time in another world. Malcolm-Jamal Warner never forgave fate for taking Michelle away too soon. That pure first love ending in tears left behind a ghost that haunted his entire life. They say time heals all wounds, but for Malcolm, the void named Michelle Thomas was never filled. Karen Molina White, the long-term love and the irreparable fracture. If Michelle Thomas was the first flame to light the heart of youth, then Karen Molina White was the slow-burning candle, steady, enduring, yet eventually fading in silence. It wasn't explosive nor romantic in the reel-to-reel fashion of his relationship with Michelle, but the love story between Malcolm-Jamal Warner and Karen revealed a phase of maturity, depth, and hope, only to leave behind a void that nothing could replace. They met in the early 1990s, when both were familiar faces to American television audiences. Karen was known for her role as Charmaine Brown in The Cosby Show, 1989-1992, and later in A Different World. Malcolm was already a sought-after young star. Their connection grew naturally from the set and through mutual circles. When friendship evolved into love, they seemed to discover a rare sense of harmony. Karen was 1 year older, born in 1965, while Malcolm was born in 1970. So to outsiders, she sometimes appeared to be the more grounded figure. But in truth, their relationship wasn't one of guidance. It was a journey walked side by side. Their love didn't last a few months, or even just a couple of years. They were together for nearly a decade, weathering major career milestones together. Malcolm entered a challenging new chapter in his 20s. The Cosby Show ended in 1992, and he was searching for a new direction. In 1996, he launched the sitcom Malcolm and Eddie, and Karen was always by his side supporting him. They appeared together at many events, unafraid to show affection publicly, but never seeking attention or drama. Fans became used to the image of a calm, soft-spoken Malcolm beside a gentle, poised Karen. In 1997, when Michelle Thomas, Malcolm's first love, appeared as a guest star on Malcolm and Eddie, Karen remained a constant presence in his life. This earned her quiet admiration from fans. She wasn't jealous, didn't stir up drama, but instead chose to respect her partner's past. It was a testament to the maturity of their love. Yet no love is immune to time. Despite their nearly 10 years together by the early 2000s, Malcolm and Karen began to drift apart. There was no official announcement, no scandal, no public tears. They simply stopped appearing together. Hollywood media briefly noted the golden couple's quiet breakup, but no one really knew why. Maybe it was clashing schedules. Maybe they realized they no longer shared the same path. But the silence only deepened public curiosity. Later, in a rare interview, Karen Molina White reflected, "We had a very beautiful long love, and I will always cherish it." Malcolm chose silence, as he often did when a relationship ended. But those close to him understood this breakup left a deep crack in his heart. If losing Michelle was a pain inflicted by fate, losing Karen was a wound carved by time and change. It's said that after the breakup, Malcolm told a close friend, "I don't regret it, but I will never forgive myself for letting her go." That one sentence revealed a heavy guilt. Sometimes love doesn't end because of betrayal or hatred. It dies from silence, from growing distance. And that is the kind of pain hardest to forgive. Years later, after settling down with a family of his own, Malcolm continued to show deep respect for Karen. They were no longer close, but never spoke ill of each other. Never let the past become a burden. To the public, theirs was a mature but unfinished love. To Malcolm, it was the second chapter in his heart's journey, a long, steady one that ultimately ended in regret. If Michelle marked the beginning of his grief through loss, then Karen was proof that even the most enduring, beautiful loves can dissolve. And in the list of 5 people he would never forgive, Karen's presence wasn't born of betrayal. It was because Malcolm never forgave fate and himself for losing a love that could have been forever. Regina King. When a public love becomes an unfulfilled expectation. If Michelle Thomas was a pure first love and Karen Molina White a long-term relationship, then Regina King was the chapter that brought Malcolm-Jamal Warner's love life into the public eye, where there was no room for secrets. This was the relationship everyone saw, everyone talked about, and everyone hoped would end beautifully. But real life rarely lives up to expectations. Malcolm met Regina King in the early 2000s, when both were already well-known faces in Hollywood. Born in 1971, Regina had made her name with 227 Boys and the Hood, and had earned widespread respect through a string of acclaimed film and TV roles. Malcolm, then entering his 30s, was more mature, more composed, and after past heartbreaks, was longing for something lasting. Between their artistic souls, the connection was quick and powerful. Unlike previous relationships, Malcolm didn't keep this one hidden. He appeared with Regina on red carpets at events and award shows. In 2011, the two caught major attention when they attended the BET Awards hand in hand. Regina glowing in a red dress, Malcolm sharp in a suit. The media showered praise, the golden couple of Black Hollywood. Fans believed this was the home Malcolm had been searching for after years of drifting. Throughout their time together, Regina and Malcolm were seen as a model couple. Regina, having gone through a divorce and raising her son Ian Alexander Jr. alone, valued the stability and calm that Malcolm brought. In return, Malcolm admired Regina's strength, talent, and magnetic presence. They supported each other, presenting as a mature, seasoned couple who understood the worth of love after enduring loss. Then came the unexpected in 2013. After 2 years of public happiness, they announced their breakup. Regina quietly deleted their shared photos from social media. Malcolm said nothing. Rumors swirled in the press. The breakup stemmed from a difference in commitment. Regina was ready for more. A new marriage, a stable home for her son, while Malcolm, though deeply in love, hesitated at the threshold of marriage. Some sources claimed the split was far from peaceful. A close friend of Regina's revealed that she felt betrayed, saying Malcolm pulled away when she needed certainty. Regina, strong as ever, didn't cry in public, but in a brief interview she let slip a telling line. "Sometimes you love someone, but they're not ready for your love." Many instantly connected those words to Malcolm. As for Malcolm, he never spoke ill or offered excuses. He chose silence, as he often did after heartbreak. But this silence became a double-edged sword. To Regina, it felt like avoidance. To the public, it appeared as guilt. And to Malcolm himself, silence was how he swallowed a wound too deep to explain. Later, when Regina King experienced the devastating loss of her only son Ian in 2022, people wondered if Malcolm ever reached out. No one knows the answer. But those who knew him believed that deep down, Malcolm still carried the weight of Regina, the woman who had placed the greatest trust in him, and the one he could never forgive himself for losing. In the list of 5 people he would never forgive, Regina King stood as a unique entry, not because of betrayal, not because of lies, but because of unfulfilled expectation. This was the love the world thought would become his anchor, only to turn into a missed turn. And for Malcolm, whenever someone mentioned Regina, he remained silent, because sometimes silence is the only way to mask regret. Regina King, with all her strength and grace, moved forward, winning Oscars, Emmys, and becoming one of the most respected actresses in Hollywood. Malcolm continued his own path, carrying a quiet wound no one could see. But deep within, Regina never left his heart. And perhaps, until the very end, Malcolm still asked himself, if I had been more ready, would we still be together?
Karen Bryant, the ambiguous relationship and another unfulfilled expectation.
By his 40s, Malcolm-Jamal Warner was no longer the boyish Theo Huxtable, nor the awkward young man of first loves. He had become a seasoned man, longing for a mature relationship. And in that search, Karen Bryant appeared. Karen Bryant wasn't an A-list entertainment star like Regina, but she was a successful figure in the media world, best known for her leadership role in the WNBA Women's National Basketball Association. It was Karen's intelligence, independence, and strength that caught Malcolm's attention. They met through mutual industry connections and gradually became what could only be called an unofficial couple. What set this relationship apart was that Malcolm and Karen never went public. They appeared together at a few events, were spotted dining out by the press, but both always dodged questions. Among close friends, everyone knew they were romantically involved. But to the public, it was all speculation. This ambiguity became a double-edged sword. On one hand, it preserved their privacy. On the other, it meant the relationship never had a solid, acknowledged foundation. Karen, being an independent and accomplished woman, wanted clarity. Malcolm, still cautious after the very public breakup with Regina King, preferred to stay away from the spotlight. These opposing approaches gradually drove them apart. Friends recalled that Karen tried multiple times to define the relationship. She didn't need a wedding, but she needed a promise, a commitment. Malcolm hesitated, not because he didn't love her, but because he feared repeating past mistakes, giving promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Once again, silence became the barrier. Around 2013-2014, as media began reporting that Malcolm had a new girlfriend, Karen's name quietly faded from conversations. There was no formal breakup, no statement, no scandal. The relationship ended the same way it began, ambiguously. But for Malcolm, it became another wound. In a rare interview, when asked about his love life, he gave a cryptic answer. "I once lost someone wonderful, not because we didn't love each other, but because we didn't talk enough." Many believed he was referring to Karen Bryant. What Malcolm could never forgive himself for was his lack of courage. With Michelle, he couldn't fight fate. With Karen, Molina, time and distance wore the love down. With Regina, it was the weight of expectation. But with Karen Bryant, the tragedy was silence itself. A relationship never truly public, never fully acknowledged, slowly died in the shadows, leaving behind an emptiness neither could fill. Karen went on to thrive in her WNBA career, becoming a symbol of strong female leadership. She never spoke about the past, never criticized, never blamed. Malcolm, true to form, kept silent, but those close to him knew this was a chapter he never truly closed. In the list of 5 people he would never forgive, Karen Bryant was a unique name. There was no betrayal, no anger, only a quiet sorrow. The pain of ambiguity, of words left unsaid, of love that never got the chance to become real before it disappeared. And for Malcolm, that pain haunted him just as deeply as any love he'd ever declared. Regina Hatcher, the unfinished symphony. Little is known about Regina Hatcher, as she wasn't an actress or a singer, but an African-American physician living far from the spotlight of Hollywood. That very fact once made Malcolm believe he had finally found a safe harbor. After years of loving under media glare, he longed for something ordinary, peaceful, a love without paparazzi. Regina entered his life like a calming breeze, bringing with her the stability, intellect, and strength of a successful woman. Friends said Malcolm and Regina met at a community event in the early 2010s. Malcolm's unique charm, a blend of intellect and artistry, immediately struck a chord with the young doctor's heart. They began dating soon after, but kept it quiet, a sharp contrast to his public relationship with Regina King. After so much heartbreak, Malcolm wanted to shield this relationship from the public eye. What stood out was that with Regina, Malcolm seemed more settled than ever before. He regularly flew from Los Angeles to the East Coast to see her, attended medical conferences and community events by her side. Those close to Regine described Malcolm as the ideal boyfriend, attentive romantic, and always willing to listen. It seemed like this was finally the mature love he had been seeking. Between 2012 and 2013, rumors of an engagement began to surface. Friends had seen them shopping for rings, and Malcolm himself hinted during an interview. It might be time to think more seriously about family. Fans were excited. After years of failed relationships, it appeared Malcolm had finally found a woman outside the entertainment industry, free from fame's pressures, offering only sincere love. But then, it all disappeared. By late 2013, they had suddenly broken up. No reason, no explanation. Some sources said Malcolm became too absorbed in work, unable to fully invest in the relationship. Others claimed Regine wanted a clear commitment, while Malcolm, though deeply in love, still couldn't take that final step. What shocked the public most was how it ended suddenly, coldly, and in complete silence. Neither of them spoke out. But those close to Regine revealed she felt betrayed. He made so many promises, then left like nothing ever happened, one of her friends shared. For Malcolm, this was another kind of pain. Unlike the public collapse of his relationship with Regina King, the story of Reene Hatcher proved that even away from the spotlight, he couldn't escape heartbreak. The man who once vowed to make up for all his past mistakes had in the end repeated the same pattern: fear of commitment, silent withdrawal. In a 2015 interview, when asked about love, Malcolm responded cryptically, "Sometimes we have everything we need, but not enough courage to hold on to it." The public had no trouble connecting those words to Regine. His silence became an invisible wound, because this love, unlike all the others, had come closest to marriage. And for that very reason, when it ended, the pain it left was even deeper. Malcolm had once believed Regine was the one, but reality proved he had lost a rare chance at lasting home and partnership. In the list of 5 people he would never forgive, Reene Hatcher represented what almost was. Not a first love, not a public romance, but a love that reached the threshold of marriage, then quietly faded. He could not forgive himself, because in the end, this pain wasn't caused by fate, distance, or expectations, but by fear rooted in his own heart. The woman in the shadows. Beyond the 5 names tied to moments that were to varying degrees witnessed by the press and the public, there was one woman Malcolm-Jamal Warner kept entirely to himself. A woman who wasn't famous, never mentioned in any official interview, yet lingered in stories told by his closest friends. And it was that very mystery that made this relationship the haunting final chapter of his life. In his final years, well into his 50s, Malcolm was no longer the young star of The Cosby Show, but a mature artist, a director, and a man who had endured much loss. He had been married, had a child, had found and lost stability. But somewhere in that journey, a blurred figure appeared. A woman who made him believe, if only briefly, that he could finally let go of the past. She wasn't an actress nor a public figure. All that's known is that she was an intellectual woman working in the creative field. Some sources say she was a writer, others claim she was an editor. What's certain is that she never appeared beside Malcolm in public, never stood with him for red carpet photos. But friends remembered catching glimpses, Malcolm smiling at his phone, or quietly leaving a party early just to make a call. According to many, the relationship didn't last long. It was like a pause, a breath of fresh air in a life full of turbulence. But as with so many before, Malcolm once again could not hold on. She left, leaving behind only a silent void. A close friend revealed, he wasn't angry, he didn't blame her, but he was sad, the kind of sadness that speaks through silence. He used to say sometimes absence hurts more than betrayal. What Malcolm could never forgive about this love was its nameless incompletion. No public declarations, no arguments, no dramatic fallout. Just a quiet affection that left just as quietly, leaving him with long nights and a single lingering question. Could that have been the last time I would be loved? When Warner passed away in 2025, a few outlets shared a cryptic post from an anonymous woman on social media. He once told me that the scariest thing isn't betrayal. It's being forgotten. No one could confirm her identity, but those who loved Malcolm understood he carried in his heart a secret love, not big enough to become part of history, but deep enough to become the final scar. In the list of 5 people he would never forgive, this last woman was not there because of wrongdoing or resentment. She was there because she made him understand the loneliest truth of all that it's possible to love sincerely and still be left behind in the journey. Malcolm-Jamal Warner lived a life both radiant and filled with quiet voids. Behind the spotlight, he was more than a television star. He was a man who longed deeply for a complete and lasting love. Yet the relationships that passed through his life, from Michelle Thomas Karen Molina White, Regina King Karen Bryant, to the final unnamed woman, each left scars that never fully healed. The list of 5 people he would never forgive was not a verdict. It was the sigh of a heart that had loved deeply, but was never quite whole. It reminds us that no matter how much fame or success one might have, we all remain fragile in the face of loneliness and loss. If this story touched you, please, leave a comment and subscribe to our channel to continue uncovering the untold stories behind the icons who helped shape history.
All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive forecast. There is still so much more to explore: stories of resilience, legacy, and truth. Feel free to dive into some of our top recommended videos now appearing on your screen.